Hey, we are here. We are here. The download is happening. This is part two of the download. Now, MBT at Home is coming to you live from our homes to your homes, having a conversation. This is something that the brainchild of the four of us, really wanting to stemming off of Dr. Barbara Antier's pedagogy of taking indigenous practice of just downloading information, downloading the present pulse of who we are, and transmitting it into a kind of, or distilling it into a way in which that we can communicate to one another, but also communicate to the community at large, in which we love and adore. So hopefully you'll join us for this time, for the part two, where we're going to be talking about revolution or revelation. To revelation, the front line starts with me. Kind of talking about a couple of things. You know, we were talking about a revolution today. We're talking about revelations that we need. And we're also talking about standing at the front line. And what does it mean to be at the front line? Something that you should know about the download, and I'm going to pass it on to my beautiful, beautiful team. Every month, one of us are going to curate. And because I'm talking first, it was me. So that's why you hear me speak. Last month, Nia gave us a powerful, powerful opportunity to really, really look at how we're utilizing social media to amplify the Black, or make money or capitalize off of social death, the social death of Black bodies. And what does that look like? What does it look like as a Black body to have that kind of death laden on us? So this month, it's my turn. And I'm really proud and excited and happy to be able to have a conversation about it. So before we start and before we dive in, I would love to just ask my beautiful, beautiful team, how you be? How you doing? How are we this evening? Whoever wants to go first.
Do you want to just pass the mic? Do you want to?
All right, I'm gonna pass it to Nia.
Hi, I'm Nia. I'm the interactive social media manager at National Black Theater. I'm a light-skinned Black woman with natural hair in a bun, wearing I don't know what this is. It's like a dress, but with buttons down the center, and then like a belt in the center as well.
So like a shirt dress?
It's exactly a shirt dress, Chelsea. Oh my goodness! Wow, MBT stylist here. That's me. How am I doing? I'm okay. I think like that exact phrasing of like there's a question mark behind it. I think that's actually how I'm doing. Many questions, a lot of curiosities.
And who do you want to pass it to?
Yeah, I'll pass it to Sade.
Hey y'all, Sade Lithcott. I'm the CEO of the National Black Theater. I am a medium tone, cafe au lait, if you will, Black woman. I am wearing a robe that has a belt and an accessory so that it doesn't look like I'm wearing a robe. And I am sitting in front of a Yoruba beaded art piece with a door to one side and a curtain to the next. And how am I doing? I will say last download, we started out with what do we do to get our vibe right? So I can answer that question. I am shifting gears, breathing deeply into this last kind of engagement in my day. And so that feels very good to be sharing it with this community and these folks that I love so much. And I'm getting my vibe right with a little Bordeaux.
Yes.
Libation. And I'm passing it to the one and only, the incomparable Chelsea D.
Hi, I'm Chelsea D. I'm a co-curator, moderator of the MBT at Home conversation series so far. What season are we in with the show? It's like 3, I would say. We've done like three iterations.
It's our third.
So far. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. In addition to just helping other productions happen at MBT, I am I would say coffee with a healthy serving of cream colored individual, toffee perhaps. I have on these wooden earrings, which depict a natural hair Afro Black woman with silver lipstick. Have on a green slap satin line cap. Get into it, okay? Protect your coils. Grace Alea. Let me just support Black-owned businesses. Okay, Grace Alea. I have on a T-shirt that says all my political beliefs, starting with protect weird Black girls. There's a bookshelf behind me of my partner's collection of cookbooks from around the world. I've got a candle. I've got some marigolds. I've got a stack of N.K. Jemisin. Whoop, whoop. Go, girl. She just got MacArthur grant, and there's plants behind me as well. What am I doing to get my vibe right? Candle was so essential. And it's giving a nice is that amber? Did we say amber? Amber glow. So it's making me feel very autumnal. So that's really where I am. I'm feeling very of the season. I'm feeling very, give me all the changing of the leaves, give me long thoughts underneath the trees, like this is a beautiful season for me. So yeah, that's what's happening. And I pass it off back to Jonathan McCrory.
Hi, everyone. So Jonathan McCrory here. I am the artistic director of MBT. Just to do this accessibility check-in. And what am I doing to get my vibe right? To get my vibe right, I actually got some chocolate because I need a little sugar pick-me-up. Thank you, Sade. And I also, we're neighbors, everyone. And I also have some water to balance out that sugar. But try to drink a full on like gallon of water every day, just to try to make sure as I'm taking in all this technology, I'm also fleshing out all the bad things that come with it. So a little bit of accessibility of what I look like for those who might need it. So I am kind of a caramel complexion, have a little bit of red hint in the tone. I have a mustache. And I have an earring on my right ear. Dyslexia hit me real quick on my right ear. I do have a scarf that has a lot of pink, yellow in it. I'm wearing a kind of a sandy color sweater. There's a brick wall behind me that has a lot of original artwork done. I have pillows also around me because I like to be comfy. And that's a little bit around a description of what I look like. And without further ado, I think we'll dive into parts of the conversation. So the topic, revolution to revelation. And it's kind of funny, whenever I think of revelation, and shout out to Alvin Ailey, perfect branding, I only think of Alvin Ailey's revelations. I'm like, when is the dance gonna start? How's the dance gonna start? Come on, let's just like get real with it. Like it's all about the dancing. So like branding, Alvin Ailey, American Dance Company, you did it, right? But I also think about, so that's the first thing that I think about. But when I also think about revolution, I wonder, are we in a revolution? Is this moment that we're in right now an actual revolution? What do you all think about that? Thinking about the time that we're in, the idea of the civic unrest, the idea of this political climate. What does revolution look like to you? And then what is revealed actually that creates the space for revelation? If people don't mind diving into that concept and that idea.
I'm like just looking into right now definitions of revolution and revelation, which I'd like to offer to maybe spark some things, but it's also sparking some things in me. But so the definition of revolution that I'm finding from Google, so if you search on Google, this is what you would find. Revolution, a forcible overthrow of a government or social order in favor of a new system. And the second definition being an insistence of revolving, which I can definitely see in the social uprisings that are happening constantly. I've been watching what's been going on in Portland, very specifically, and they're on like 120, 30 days of just continuous insistence on revolving, insistence on something else happening. So then I think by revelation, what's it say here? A surprising and previously unknown fact, especially one that is made known in a dramatic way. The second definition being the divine or supernatural disclosure to humans of something relating to human existence or the world. Well, with that in mind, I mean, it's tricky because I'm like, things are being, we could say revealed, but it's also things that we were aware of were rotten and decaying. So maybe it's the pandemic ushering in a dramatic way of that being really material in our lives. But, you know, the holes in our social safety net, the way that we treat people who have contributed income from the government or receiving it or trying to receive it or trying to live off of what they receive from the, I mean, it's like really untenable and anti-life. And so I think that is really being shown in a huge way, gaping holes.
If we're voting on definitions, I would say the second one of revolution does not follow a conflict-based model. It's actually like kind of the repetition and like the circular nature of who we are, where it's like an insistence on what we can do and be and like constantly pushing forward. I appreciate that versus like a revolution just being like two sides pushing back and forth, and then one has to conquer or one has to win in some way. And the same thing with the definition, the second definition for revelation, it being this like spiritual, divine message that is larger than life. It's not just like a piece of information, but through this insistence, this repetition of how can we do more, how can we deepen in ourselves, then like supernatural calling will enter our space versus just like picking up facts. That's my vote.
For me, I think that the intersection of revolution and revelation is most, for me, most articulated most articulated and embodied by Octavia Butler's kind of manifesto and quote around change, which is all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. I think in that quote from Octavia Butler is the front line of the revolution, and the revelation of that, kind of the intersectionality of that, is the revelation that it all starts with you, and that the change part of it, our accountability and responsibility and our response to change can be sacred and divine. And when we talk about revolution and we talk about the shifting and the dismantling of systems and the change we want to see in the world, right? All of the taglines that you hear accompanied with revolution has to start with you. And the revelation of it all is that there is this symbiosis of mattering, of the revolving of change. And if we can internalize the responsibility of the revolutionary act of, that the dismantling of the oppressive stories that we hold true for ourselves, with Dr. Tears, one of Dr. Tears' manifestos, we are actually the embodiment of revolution. So then it doesn't matter if we're marching on the streets. It doesn't matter, we're not in the business of virtue signaling, but instead we are in the business of the dismantling of the oppressive stories in ourselves, the change that exists, that is ever present, vibrating within ourselves as we change, and then magnifying that in the world in the ways that we know how to do best. And so I think that revolution and revelation are kissing cousins, they're sisters. The revelation of revolution is that it won't be televised, but it absolutely will start with our breath. It will start with reflection. It will start in us, and it will reveal itself. The revolution will reveal itself to us through that process of revelation.
You know, what's quite beautiful about what everyone's bringing up and what you bring us into home base with, Sade, inside of your sharing, is this notion. And please, if you have comments, you have questions, those who are witnessing and watching what we're doing, this is supposed to be participatory as much as it can be in this virtual space. So please write a comment, tag in, let us know how the family, you are a part of our family, are receiving and responding to what we're saying. What's quite beautiful about what you talk about and that it brings in a little bit of the tagline, the front line the front line is me, or how am I on the front line, is this notion of how are we preparing our internal space to receive both a revolution and also a revelation? Like, how are we preparing our internal space to be able to kind of hold both of those very necessary things that are, I hold true also what Octavia says around change, and we are holding those things to be true. How do we hold space for us to be in consistent relationship with change? Something that you said, Nia, that I really appreciate is that it's not about the mammoth definition. It's about the manageable definition, right? It's about the space of like, it's not about creating the space of simplicity, but through like what we talk about a lot in the arts, through simplicity is a lot of complexity. Like sometimes the most simplistic tactic, the most simplistic way of doing a set or designing X, Y, and Z is sometimes the most complex, because now you have to make it alive and buoyant throughout a long period of time, or durational period of time. So there's actually something really beautiful in thinking about the ways in which both of your sharings illuminate the preparation, and then I sit back and say, how am I preparing myself? Well, what ways am I preparing myself for both the revolution and also the revelation? Like, one way for me, and I was talking to someone about this the other day, who they visited me in my new place that I've been able to move into. They were like, this feels like Sade has said this about my place numerous times. It feels like a big old altar, a big old sacred altar. And I keep on saying that I'm preparing my home to be ready to fortify me, knowing that what's out in these streets is a different kind of vibration, knowing that what I see in the news is a different kind of vibration than I traditionally, like, we think about how Mother Nature is even addressing humanity right now. If we think about how we as humans are taking care of and how we are building with each other right now, there's kind of this friction that's showing up that is potentially chaotic in a lot of ways. It's a chaotic friction that has elements of revolution. It has elements of a reveal, a revelation. And for me, when I think about that preparation, how do you prepare? How do you get yourself ready for those moments? I wonder if there are any gems or tools that we could talk about. Because, like, Chelsea, it makes me want to ask you about the farm. Is the farm about getting ready and being prepared? Like how are we preparing our space internally, our personal lives, to be ready for this new moment?
Yeah, I mean, well, just to build off that, I think, and this relates to my enthusiasm to build a farm from the ground up, clear the land and start from there. And I think it started with like, when you think about preparing yourself personally, internally. I think for me, it was not looking away and seeing the writing on the wall, seeing, what these decisions that were being made at the time when my partner and I were deciding to commit to really building the farm, the decisions that were being made, the language that was being used to frame people who were unemployed, to frame people who were experiencing financial hardship, this idea of get back out there and get to work. And if you're starving and cold and hungry and you don't have no shoes, like you're going to work better, which is a very like 17th, 18th century philosophy, you know, that you need to be, everybody needs to either be peasants on the street or born of royal blood. So, I mean, it's like really extreme dichotomies that I was picking up on. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I could say, all right, things will go back to normal, and we'll, you know, don't worry, they love us and they'll look after us, and you know, this is just a crazy moment, and we'll go back to something. But I think not looking away from the revelation that these are systems that will kill you, that are okay with you dying, that are okay with sacrificing you, your children, your elders. It's a very plantation mentality. So I think in accepting what I was seeing, you know, because these politicians were like saying it. They were saying, you know, if you need this money, or if you're trying to apply for this money, like you are a drag on America, you know, the American economy getting back. You know, you're holding us back with your age, you know, with your youth, with your health, with your body, you know. So I took the hint. I think I took the hint, and I said, in a very basic way, if I can feed myself, and this is, you know, we're going to talk about this in MBT at Home, but Fannie Lou Hamer, I think, really understood, if you can feed yourself and you can provide for your community to eat, because after the election cycle is over, after the politicians have gotten what they want, after, you know, the fire has been put out, or whatever the case may be, you still have to eat. And so if you're able to provide that for yourself, you are making a real strike at the heart of a system that would rather have you dead. And so I think, you know, really embracing the fact that, oh, they try, they're okay if I die. Like they're totally fine with me dying. And so I'm going to have to take this into my own hands, like literally take this into my own hands. So there's that. Feed yourself. And there's such a long history of having a little patch of soil, whether it's something you make on your windowsill or something you make on your bookshelf, of being able to grow some food to sustain yourself. And then I would also say a readiness kit. And I'm like, let's get to brass tacks here, okay? First aid kit, burn. Do you know how to treat a burn? Do you know how to treat a gunshot wound? Do you have batteries? Do you have food for 2 weeks? Should the electricity go out? Do you have food that is sustainable for 2 weeks that doesn't need refrigeration? I mean, do you have a family readiness evacuation plan? If you have to, and Jonathan McCrory, I would say, Jonathan and Sade were two people who I really do think played a huge part in saving my life at the beginning of this quarantine, when y'all were like, you might want to get to DC like now before they shut it down and movement is restricted. And I remember being like, I don't have a readiness plan. Like, I don't really have an evacuation, like, because when these revelations happen, when these revolutions begin, it's sudden. You know what I mean? You don't have the time to really be like, okay, let me just figure it out.
Yes.
So having that readiness plan, that type of stuff makes me feel safer. It makes me feel like, you know, I could bob and weave with whatever this situation presents. And I'm taking my life out. I'm taking the responsibility for my life out of the hands of systems that would kill me.
That is taking your life out of the hands of the systems that might kill you. I mean, that is very real. I also just want to uplift this notion of, when the election cycle is done, can you feed yourself? After all this is said and done, can we still feed ourselves? Can we still make sure there's food on the table and that we are able to be fed? I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to bring up from there, but like, that was also deeply, deeply important. And I just want to say, because this is a live, lived moment, I might need to go get my charger. I might be away for 2 seconds, but I'll be right back. Don't worry. All right.
That's real. I think that also just inviting folks who are watching to submit questions or comments or things that we can uplift in the conversation, because there was so much there. Nia?
Yeah, this just made me realize I'm not ready. In terms of like what is in my toolkit, I think I have a lot of like abstract things where it's like I have my dreams, I have my imagination, I have my tribe. And it's not like those things aren't tangible because I do bring them into my everyday life. But what is it to actually have a readiness plan? And like I'm from Southern California. My family and I were not ready for the fires in 2018, 2019, where it's like we took all of our trinkets, we left all of our medicine in our house, and when we could not return for a few weeks, we're like, we should have made a readiness plan. So now they're like, our house looks like an auction room where there's like little different color-coded dots on items where it's like, okay, the red ones are like if we have no time and we'll take these few things.
Wow.
If we have like a little more time. Shout out to Cheryl Farrell, my mother, all those dots. I think coming up with like a tangible readiness plan. The feeling of there's a lot of rhetoric around like leaving, where it's like after November 3rd, if X, Y, and Z happens, I'm gonna leave. And I kind of want to be like, what's the plan? What are you taking with you? What are you growing when you go? And what will you come back with? How are you taking care of yourself? Because leaving just to like put some blinders up, that's just like leaving your house when there's a fire, not with you. But like what are you actually preparing for in that exit?
That's deep.
Yeah. Fire is such a brutal savage in that it takes it. Like a flood might leave things severely damaged. But a fire like leaves nothing there. So I feel like it's such a
except for cleared space for something new to grow.
There are
in between
cones that require the heat of a forest fire to release its seed.
Yeah.
Like we suppress fires. This is my California self coming up. We've suppressed fires so much. Urban sprawl, ridiculous. Fires are natural. They create new life. It's about clearing out the weeds. We have left so many weeds, and this isn't about like raking the weeds. That's not what I'm saying, but like genuinely allowing the earth to restore the balance that it's trying to constantly.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that is the whole theory behind Sankofa, right? That's the whole theory behind the phoenix rising from the ashes. And that's the reason why, you know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. If there is a revolution, if there is a revelation around the revolution, is that things must burn in order for something new to grow, and really truly new, not build on top of what was, but to clear a clearing. I would say that, like, for me, thinking about what you both said, which is profound, is that revelation is the roadmap by which we experience revolution. And if revolution is a destination, that in the word itself, everything you need to know to prepare yourself and how we maneuver it is centered in the word. So in the center of the word revolution, that's why I love the word revolution, is love, right? Love is that you cannot have a conversation around revolution without it centering around love. And literally the epistemology of the word sits in the center. And why I love that so much, and why that for me is literally a revelation, is because so much of the perception of revolution is violent. It is angst filled. It is, we watch how protesters are being categorized as looters, as violent individuals, and starting a revolution. But actually, the truth of the matter is this idea of centering love in all action is truly is the catalytic force and energy by which shit changes.
Yeah.
And Chelsea's point, Chelsea's talking about the systems that were designed to kill us, right? So if we're always centering the system, even by, centering it through, we're going to dismantle it, we're going to resist it. We know what we resist persists, right? So how is the revolution in that?
Yeah.
But centering love and coming from that energy that would have you clear the land and plant some food to sustain not only you, but your whole community. That is love, and that's the revolution. Centering pleasure, centering rest, the things that start within is the love. And so that must be the revolution. If we need systems to acknowledge our activism, if we need systems, like, do Black Lives Matter without white people saying that they matter, right? Like, if there is a module for validation attached to your revolution outside of your own self-love, is it truly a revolution? Because the thing about the times that we're living in is that they're not these are not outlier times, right? Like, we have seen so much of this before. MBT was founded in 1968. 1968, little known fact, there was a pandemic. There were uprisings, there were assassination, there was racial upheaval, all of the things, right? So how are we approaching this moment differently than moments that we've seen before? And they call that revolutionary times, but those revolutionary times, the way that they were adapted, have gotten us back here. And we're having similar, if not same, conversations. So was that a revolution? And for some folks, it was, because they divested and they built the farm, they built the institution, they built the land, and they fed and they fed and they fed, and many of us were killed. But that paradigm shift, the commitment to paradigm shift from a deeply loving space, is my revelation around how revolution can be sustainable. Because that's the other thing. Revolutions cannot be moments. They can only be momentums of movements that have stood on shoulders of wisdom that we download to be able to push forward, to offer something to the generation that has yet to experience our experiences. So for me, that, and as a people, and whether this is controversial or not, as a people, we have never learned how to truly love ourselves. And until we do that, are we revolutionaries?
Or until we have learned that, when do we start to move past the same lesson? Like, because it feels cyclical, because the love of self, the love of self has not really truly been ingrained. Like it is kind of like, what lesson did we not learn in 1968 that we are having the opportunity to learn now? What clearing do we now have to re-engage with, thinking about this, like utilizing this idea of the fire, which is quite beautiful, and thinking about how it creates opportunity for something new or something imaginative, and also awaken something, because sometimes some people need that fire. Some things need that fire in order to actually show up. Like the plant that you talked about, Nia, like the seed needs the heat of it. And like, what parts of us need the heat of this situation to awaken? And then, are we willing to sustain that awakening vibration? Are we willing to actually move forward from that awakening vibration to have something magical happen within us and between us? So there is something quite powerful about that feels quite present and feels quite necessary when we start thinking about, is this a revolution, and what is the revelations that come out, and then what's the part of the front line that what I'm hearing, which I think is so right on, is that while we need to clear, we also need to clear the internal blockages that are within ourselves, so that we're not just clearing to create the same capitalistic structure that we knew. We're actually clearing to fall in love with the discomfort of what we don't know about ourselves, how we don't love ourselves, or how we don't have conversations with ourselves, to then begin to imagine a different world. There's an imagination opportunity that can happen in the clearing as well. which is quite amazing, but also quite daunting because it's because you also have to do the work. I can only imagine the kind of work that you're having to do, Chelsea, that's awakening different bones, different muscles than what you are accustomed to. And that's also a part.
What if the world that we experience, right? Because Jonathan and I are doing some like technology research and looking at virtual reality, augmented reality, but it's all reality. Like, also, what if the world we experience is singularly just a reflection of what is happening inside of us? I promise you, there are people right now who are living in their bliss, for better or for worse, right? Like when you look at the right-wing, white supremacist Proud Boys, what they are seeing is a reflection of what's happening inside of them. And by the way, a big part of my revelation around revolution is accountability, right? So like what we experience, we have to be accountable for as a reflection of what's happening inside of us. So if we don't like the world in which we're experiencing through our perception, then that work has to start inside. Because I imagine Chelsea, and you know, we are putting all the energy on you and your farm, but I imagine those choices and decisions to clear the land, to plant seeds, to be able to, for you and your partner to engage in that way with the transformational like aspect of what it is to watch something go from hard ground to fertile soil. That shapes your experience of how you operate and exist in the world, how safe you feel, how loved you feel, how useful you feel. And that for me is the thing that gets lost when people use words like love. They don't see that the most dangerous weapon we could ever have in our toolbox is love. And to relegate it or marginalize it in any kind of way is a part of the systemic oppression of the stories we share with each other. The reality is not the news. The reality is how I feel about myself, how I lean into the discomfort of the moment with the warm embrace, how I teach how I feel to those around me, starting with my own seed. You know, so I think that, yeah, I think that so much of the world we live in is just a reflection of our interior, and we get to choose that. And it's really the only thing that exists that we do get to actually choose and control.
I mean, I think about like, oh, go ahead, Mia.
I'm so glad you brought virtual and augmented reality into the space, because it's the perfect example of why we can't start things externally, because you have this vast universe, new universe to create a new place. And somehow we continue to lean on the same structures that continue to hurt us time and time again. Where it's like all these arguments of like things outside of capitalism won't work. I'm like, well, have we tried anything? We have these like alternate realities. Do we want to try it? And we can't, because the internal work has not been done in order to trust that something different can be changed.
That part. Chelsea, you had something you're about to
I just wanted to, I think I'm connecting two thoughts, but like, I think doing some farming has put me in connection with the legacy of Black folk creating free Black spaces in a slave-holding country, and just the history of that. And I just want to uplift some sisters in New Orleans, Louisiana, who I think are building radically resilient communities, and the foundation of it is love. This is a collection of Black trans women who are creating generations of housing for trans and gender nonconforming, non-binary folks in Louisiana. So they're buying land, they're building homes, they're providing stability of housing and creating something that I think is going to create a sustainable thing down the line for generations, and it's going to change stuff for an entire community. And what Mariah was saying, Mariah Moore and her co-founder of the House of Tulip, which is the name of it, the House of Tulip, What Mariah Moore was talking about, she just did an interview with The Guardian, and she was saying that like the radicalness of the idea to just buy land and start creating housing for trans people, because the federal government is like making a concerted effort to not do so intentionally. She talked about it's grounded in love, and that the love is what makes it radical. The love is what makes you go, I'm going to stand up for my people, for my sisters, because we are being killed and y'all are not doing anything about it. So we are going to build, get the land, clear it, build the home, create the generations of housing, which is, I feel like, some of the most radical work you can do in a society that's like, no, I would much rather have you houseless, on the street, dying, than give you any type of opportunity to bloom. I love it. The House of Tulip. I'm like, talk about blossoming, talk about blooming where you're planted, talk about creating generations in the future because of love. It is love. It is a love thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there, uplift their work.
And Dr. Tier always said the only currency you can take to the bank is love. And people laughed at her. They were like, oh, so I remember my mom, Dr. Tier, was in conversation with Amiri Baraka at NYU while I was at NYU. And I'm looking at a picture of myself from the audience, and they got into this fight on stage, which was like their theater, right? Like the amount of public, like, fights, arguments, I should say, that Amiri and my mother would get in. They loved it. Like, it was kind of their turn on. But my mother was like having a download, and she was like, and the only currency you can take to the bank is love. And she like dropped it like a mic drop. And Amiri was like, is that how you bought your building? You bought that block with love? Like, is that that's your credit rating is based on love? And and then everyone started to laugh. And my mother was like, I absolutely took the love of my community to get me to a place that I could go to a bank, and I paid that mortgage with love. And it was that wonderful kind of moment of matriarchy versus patriarchy, and two, like, very well respected, and two people who loved each other deeply and dearly, acknowledging that, like, these energies by which revolution and change occurs has an energy and a vibration. And that we could see in that moment, Amiri had this amazing legacy, a lot of which was based on burning shit down, which is valid, as we've said. And yet National Black Theater was built on the ashes of that fire in 1983, and it was paid with and through deep love. And that we as Black folks have to be able to hold in our toolbox the dichotomy of all that we are, of which is change, right? And the ability to be nimble with the tools that we have at our disposal. Love, really and truly and radically and unapologetically. There's love in friction. There's love in discomfort. Birth children into the world. It is the most painful, uncomfortable, process. And it is also the most beautiful and natural. It is an ecstatic pain. And it sits at the precipice of pleasure. That's what orgasm is too. The precipice of pain and pleasure and friction and all of it, that's the revolution. And people would have you believe that it lives outside of ourselves. And that, and I'll shut up, which but to Chelsea's point, everything that they would have you believe is systemically a part of your demise and destruction. And not only do they want you to die, but more importantly, you're more valuable if you're addicted.
Yeah.
So capitalism and all of the things that keep you addicted, keep the entrenched investment in their systems. If you die, that's great. They can disregard you. But if you live and depend and are addicted, then they got you for life. And
so that gets us to the documentary that Nia and I have been watching. I don't know if everyone else has watched it out there in the social universe, but The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
I couldn't watch it past 10 minutes.
Because that documentary will have you potentially not watch our show anymore because you don't want to be on Facebook or any other platform whatsoever. I mean, it's like a powerful space to actually think about the addiction, how the addiction stifles the revolution and actually blocks the revelation because you can't actually allow for yourself to be clear enough to be the vessel or the tuning fork. You then become the tool and the actual object of someone else's affection. And what's really powerful about Social Dilemma is that the target isn't a human. The target was human made, but it's not a human. It is a computer. It is a computer that's taking the algorithm of this conversation right now and generating multiple different aspects, multiple different points that are actually creating your desire points. That's actually saying, oh, you want to buy this, or oh, you want to watch this, oh, you want this person to be your friend, or oh, you want this phone to be attached to you, oh, you're gonna wake up looking at it. And the algorithm of that attraction, that allure, that seduction, that my family is crazy to think about. And it's crazy to think about how we are needing it more and more in the precipice of this pandemic as a tool and mechanism to connect, know each other, be able to check in on each other. Some people, we talk about when we return back, when things go back to being live. And the truth of it is that some people might never get back to coming back to gatherings. They might not. This virus, this pandemic, also the psychological warfare that's happened during this time has shifted people, has shifted the fabric of our society. The exact same way that 9/11 shifted the fabric of our society, and we kept on saying, oh, we'll get back to flying planes, or the experience will go back to what it was, and it hasn't. We have forever been changed by the moment, and we will forever be changed by this moment. And the question is, at the heart of it, and I think we're getting at it on so many levels, what change do you want? What change do you need? What change do you seek? What does this? I mean, when I think about this and I think about this conversation, it brings me back to this very real sensibility that I don't know if I'll ever forget. When the pandemic happened, we shut down all public gatherings, and then the civic, and then George Floyd, and then Breonna, and then all of these moments of state violence against Black and brown bodies happened. There was this huge discomfort on my chest. And instead of trying to figure out how to move past it, because I don't think sometimes we have a love affair, as Sade was talking about a little bit earlier, with discomfort. I think we had a conversation about this. I don't know if we talked about it in this conversation, but you said it somewhere earlier today to me. It made me really understand the power of sitting with discomfort as a tool and mechanism to forge through my next path. That I'm not forging through to try to find comfort, I'm actually forging through to figure out, how do I allow the discomfort to let me know more about myself, love myself, and then build from that space. Because the space of comfort that I knew is not the space of evolution, revolution, and revelation. So how do we come to a conversation of also having discomfort, conflict, friction, healthy friction being seen as healthy, not as something that we need to run away from, something that we don't actually care for, but friction being something that we actually can lean into to create, as I say so often to my team, the diamond. The diamond the crystal, they cannot be created without the mechanism of that pressure point. So that's just something. I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I will stop. But I do want to. But before we. Oh yes, Nia. And then I'm gonna have a round of I'm gonna do the closeout because I think we're at about time. But Nia, go.
No,
we can keep on going. All right.
Speaking of friction, we have a question from MBT fam, Michelle Shea. How you doing?
Hey, hey, Shay.
So in the light of such
The great Michelle Shea.
the great
Yes,
Michelle,
Thee.
great Michelle Shea. Michelle asked, in the light of such extreme friction and division that exists, what conversation would you have with the opposite side to soften the resistant consciousness enough to soften or dissolve or move the resistance to a tipping point?
I would say, okay, so there's a human need of wanting to allow the bridge that I figured out, or the bridge that I have utilized as a mechanism that's actually helped me to soften and actually get to a place of tipping. And when I think of tipping, I think of overflow, right? Allowing for the overflow to then spill and allow for something else to come from that tipping point, is allowing for myself and the intimacy of calling people in. The softness is necessary to call people in. My armor is my softness. My armor is not a metallic, muscle-building kind of notion that actually works up against the pressure point of someone else. The more and more that I'm able to de-escalate the notion of confrontation and actually infuse the notion of communication, of actually allowing for a leveling ground for both of us to see our humanity in this moment, even though we might have different perspectives, different points of view, even though we might have different ways of being, different ways to be. And on this Zoom right now, there is a multitude of personalities, opportunities, lived experiences, life experiences that actually test, defy, and actually are incongruent with being with how Black folks be. Right? That actually work in a beautiful concert. What actually allows for the four of us to work together the way that we do is because we lean into the softness of our humanity, I think, as much as possible. So that when I do something that ruffles the feathers of Nia, Chelsea, or Sade, I allow myself to sit with the reality that I actually have to hold myself accountable. Can I hold myself accountable for that ruffled feather? Can I actually allow myself to see and actually be in relationship to the thing that I caused, whatever that might be, good, bad, or indifferent, and then have a relationship, a conversation that allows for my vulnerability to show up, which will hopefully awaken someone else's vulnerability. Now everyone's ready for that kind of high-level conversation. Now everyone's ready for that space. However, what I do believe is that if I cultivate the joy inside of me, it can then dismantle and distill any kind of agitation that happens inside space. That's what I work towards.
Yeah.
I look towards. Oh yeah, go ahead, Chelsea. Go.
No, go Chelsea.
Okay. Are you done, Jonathan? Oh, okay. I mean, I would say in response to that, I feel like it's a two-part process. It's a two-step process. You know how when you lose access to something and you got to go through a two-step authentication process? That's what I would call this. The first layer of the authentication process, because I'm not getting involved in conversations with people who want to debate whether or not I'm a human being. And I feel like I have to get that out of the way first.
Yeah,
if we can just get that, if we can get to a point where you're like, oh, perhaps I do think that you are subhuman, but I'm open to the possibility that you're not, then we can maybe move forward. I mean, I'm very particular about the energy I'm giving to that. But so the first thing is, is it opinion versus a death wish against my life? And once we have that kind of sussed, the second thing I would say is theater games. That's the best. Some rounds of some icebreakers. Because really what I think is like, we are so, speaking of the social dilemma, what blows my mind is like they're taking all this data and just using it to sell us stuff right now. Like that's the stupidity of some of this thinking. Like I'm downloading your life so I can sell you these shoes. Like really? But it can get nefarious. I just want to put that out there. But anyways, I just feel like with the way that our echo chambers are being developed, it's so easy for us to dehumanize the other side. It's so easy for us to go, oh, they're demons, they're evil, they're inherently worthless, and la la la. But after a few runs of zip, zap, zop, if you have attention and focus, you have attention and focus. It doesn't matter if you're conservative, doesn't matter if you're incredibly liberal. Are we good at this game or not? Like, and I think that that's the great thing about theater games. That's the best I can come up with.
Guess what I would say too is I agree 100%. And I think a lot of this does lie in, the genesis of what it is to be human and courageous enough to reveal our humanity. But what I would also kind of specifically say is that the truth of the matter is all of us, humanity calibrates around a few principles that exist, whatever your belief system is, which is people want to feel seen and people want to feel heard and they want to know that their life matters. And we're all fighting the same fight in different tones and from different perspectives. That's what I think is so genius about the pedagogy of Dr. Tier and what the work we do at National Black Theater. Like, we want to create the most reverent, sacred space for any soul being to walk into space and feel seen, to feel heard, and that their life matters. And so when you can understand that no matter someone else's belief system is a reflection of wanting, yearning for that acknowledgement, there's common ground. And yes, to Chelsea's point, if you want to kill me, if you want to see harm done by me, I wouldn't choose to expend my energy that way. However, what I can do is lean in deeply and listen to what you're actually saying. And that's the radical healing of the work we do, is the active leaning into listening. And what you'll hear in so many of these stories, even if they're diabolically opposed to your belief system, is a thread that you also have threaded in your own life. And that is why the humanity part is important. It's also important to understand matrices. When people debate and they fight around, they don't fight around tangible things. They fight around polarizing issues. They fight around, the binary of man versus woman. Like, well, what if I'm non-binary? Then it's like, well, we don't know where to put you. You don't matter, right? It's actually, we're having simple conflicts that revolve around people refusing to acknowledge each other's humanity and refusing to build a bridge to offer someone else the fundamental things that they want themselves, which is to be seen, safe, sacred, and heard. And so that's what I would extend in those places, but understand that not all of your energy is well spent on battles. But it absolutely is when you feel like, there's an acknowledgement of our own humanity within each other.
And to kind of, there's another question, and I think it's a good segue into also what you brought up, Sade. Sylvia, thank you so much for it. How will you get this information into the community? And I think that for MBT, the download is an opportunity for us as the content curators of National Black Theater, the people who execute a lot of the content and dream up a lot of the content that you visually get to experience. There's an opportunity for us to actually create a direct pipeline for you to get to know who we are, but also for us to share a little bit behind the scenes of how we kind of like come up with ideas and hopefully be infused by the community to be inspired to think about what future ideations and iterations of MBT's programming could look like. So to that point, just to give you a little bit of, and we could talk about some of the things that we're doing in this moment. For MBT, we have a slate of fall programming that actually exemplifies, illuminates, and kind of works as a push-pull to a lot of things that we talked about. One of those is a series that we're doing right now. You actually can see 3 of them right now, which is Unbought and Unbossed, Reclaiming Our Vote. That is happening currently right now. 3 pieces are out, one by Lady Dane, one by Val Gentry and Candace, and then last one by Mahogany Brown. These are four women, self-identified Black women artists that we have commissioned to create new digital shorts that are helping to amplify this notion of voting. What does it mean? How do we reclaim it? What does it mean to claim it? And looking at the legacy of Shirley Chisholm as a vehicle to do that. So definitely invite you to check that out. There are 3 more coming, and there are 3 other dynamic visuals that are coming out. So please check it out for the rest of the month of October. Also, Chelsea D is our moderator for a conversation series that happens actually every Thursday for almost the rest of the month. So please come check it out. It's an opportunity for you to engage with the artists and some other scholars around voting, voter suppression, but also what does it mean for the Black woman to be centered in this opportunity, in this moment of living and being and breathing. Yes, Sade.
Before we wrap that part, I just want to let everybody know today is October 8th. We're very live. Tomorrow, for my New York State brothers and sisters, is the last deadline to register to vote. So as we're talking about our series, Unbought and Unbossed, reclaiming our vote, if you are not registered to vote, you still have one more day. And you can get more information about that on our website because we partnered with When We All Vote. There's conversations to be had around the restoration of the right for felons to vote in New York State.
I say.
So a conversation around checking your status, right? Because many people have been registered to vote for decades, and yet you can fall off of the rolls. So it's not enough just to be like, I'm registered. Please do it the 2-step, because Black people love a 2-step. Check to make sure you are registered, and you have until tomorrow to register to vote. And early in-person voting starts October 24th. Sorry, that was my PSA. Also,
sorry, that's necessary.
Also, the census got extended to October 30th. So you also have time to fill out your census while you're registering to vote. Bam.
All important. And then, so again, programming, we connect with also partnering with other organizations that really help us to amplify our ideas, knowing that civic engagement's a part of MBT's ideology and pedagogy. So knowing that we're not the experts at everything, but we can be the partner to bridge the knowledge necessary for our community to be well-resourced. So we have partnered with When We All Vote for this series. And then also after in the midst of November, we have a radio play that we're going to be releasing called Retreat, which is written by Tracy Conyer-Lee, one of our playwright in residence, and directed by Jalen Livingston. So the way that we share our knowledge to community is through the craft of our art making. And what we have done as being Black folks and being in our indigenous space of consistently turning lemons into lemonade, figuring out how to take the crumbs and turn it into something that feeds the multitude. We have taken this moment where we're not able to gather and generate how we turn this digital space, how we turn this way of feeding and giving financial money to individual artists. We're trying to hire as many of the individual artists as possible during this time, so that we can create healthy spaces for our community and help to make sure that through our action, we are living by our principles. So, and then the other project that's happening, that's starting next week. And then Sade, please chime in.
No, it was just like in the moment. I said, by the way, those crumbs are how we created soul food. So that's what we're serving up. We're serving up some soul food.
Come on now, give me some soul food.
Food for your soul.
And Nia, that was a perfect time to bring up the book from that. Never mind. You remember the teenage? No, remember the chicken soup for the soul? That was this is a joke. This joke. Love. All right. So next week. So next week, we will have NYU. We have a partnership with NYU. It'll be our second year working with NYU, with the body, the young curators of the future body at NYU, the artists of NYU, and we've created 2 digital theatrical works. One I have actually been the lead creator of. It's a devised piece. So I don't want to say I'm the director, but lead creator of. And then also Ebony Will Golden is also one of the lead creators of that. And the theme of it is actually building off of the theme of National Black Theater Season, which is building the future now. I think if you think about anything that we've talked about today, we've been talking about building the future now. What does it mean to make the reality of what we live in be a future reality that allows us to sustain future generations, talking about that fire, the clearing for the future. So if you are free and available, check all our programming out on our website. That allows for you to kind of get to take the ideas that we're sharing with you and see how they can be materialized through creative ideation and creative manifestation. So, I mean, it's been an hour.
It sure has. This is literally how I want my days to end every day, sharing space with these brilliant souls.
And if you check up on our website, which is right there, do our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter. There are multiple ways. Morning affirmations are a way to get to engage with us. Making a contribution helps us to make sure that we actually can do more. Donate, make a contribution, $1, $2, $87 million. It all helps. Next month, we will be blessed with one of our other 2 curators on this lovely, what's this thing called? Box screen. StreamYard. That's what it's called. StreamYard channel.
What we want to also say is that, like, in building community and sharing out to community, your voices matter as much, if not more, than our own voices. And these conversations are curated through a process of what is the pulse, what is the deep listening of community. So if you have an idea that you want the 4 of us to be in discourse dialogue and to channel the download, please do reach out through our social media platforms to let us know what's on your mind and what you want us to talk about. We're always going to bring you what's present in our community's concern, and reveal through revelations the reveal of what those concerns are. Giving it back to you, Jonathan. I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, this is perfect. No, it's very much perfect. Do we want to do a unifying breath team, or are we? I know I asked after everyone. Oh, okay, it's happening. Okay, so great. Huh? Okay.
Medicine, Jonathan.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a unifying breath. For those who are new to MBT, those who are seasoned by MBT, this is a way in which that we will close every gathering in person. It's a way in which for us to center and honor the time we've had with each other, and a way for us to walk into the rest of our afternoon with a centering opportunity to ground ourselves. So we're gonna take a unifying breath together. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to have this time, and we'll see you the second Thursday of every month. You'll see these faces coming together to bring you, serve you a download. All right, so if everyone put their 2 feet or however you can, be connected to Mother Earth, be connected to the ground in which you are around. We're gonna take a unifying breath. And when we breathe in, I'm asked that we breathe in love, possibility, healing, the idea, the revolution and the revelation to come deep inside of your system, and allowing the energy from the Mother Earth, the ground in which you stand, to travel up through your legs, and allowing the energy from the crown, the royal, the abundant, you travel through the crown of your head and land to the center of your system. We're just gonna take a breath together. And when we breathe, I'm gonna give you a little bit around my technology around breath so that we're all on the same page. Breath is a very important thing. Breath is the thing that allowed for this instrument, this vessel, this gift, this machine to operate. Breath was the thing that woke you up this morning. So with that, we're gonna take a unifying breath, knowing that in this space and time, this digital space and time, we have been able to talk, been able to breathe, been able to be with each other in a way in which we will never be able to do again. This right here, right now is a sacred algorithm. So we're gonna take a breath and breathe in together. And when we breathe in, I want you to breathe in the revelation and also the revolution that you want to run through your entire body. And then when you exhale, I want you to exhale it as a gift. So it wraps around everyone that surrounds you. So it wraps around every situation that you can imagine, so that it can be bound and healed with love. And with that love, a change agent for your good. So the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Then exhale. Ashe.
Okay. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, fam. See you next month.